Revealed, the sinister, spine-chilling secrets behind the cursed rules of Mall of America. Emily, a retail employee at the Mall of America, felt a shiver run down her spine as she trod the echoing corridors during the late hours. The once comforting glow of the fluorescent lights, which she thought bathed her in safety while she worked her shifts, now seemed to flicker with malice. Whispers of cursed rules wrapped around her like icy fingers as she veered deeper into the labyrinthine halls, where labels and mannequins felt more like shadows lurking in the corners than mere merchandise. What were those stupid tales again? She thought, shaking her head. The odd janitor with his penchant for horror stories had painted the mall in strokes of dread, a supernatural realm where every shopping spree had a sinister twist. Families vanishing, haunted spirits, terrible fates. It sounded like the stuff of urban myths. These grandmother tales couldn't be real, right? She rolled her eyes again, thinking about the bills piling up and her cranky teenage son, Jason, who was all too easily rattled. As midnight approached, terrified whispers became louder in her mind, but she pushed forward, sarcasm gripping her heart. With each step, she felt the tension mix with the flickers of fluorescent bulbs. The robotic hum of the escalators now eerily echoed like ghostly sighs in her ears. It was a normal, bustling mall by day, but it turned unrecognizable at this hour. And yet, this place had been her sanctuary, a routine where she could scrape together enough to make ends meet. Until lately, she wondered. The next few days infused paranoia as she noticed her neighbors whispering over backyard fences, eyes wide with fear. Jason, her bright, goofy son, suddenly wore an anxious mask, always looking over his shoulder as if something stalked him. She tried to dismiss the notion, but each time the shadows danced behind him, the bile of worry pooled in her stomach. One evening, while completing her cleaning duties, long after the mall had emptied, her heart plummeted when Jason failed to show up. Panic seized her chest as she screamed his name, a futile echo swallowed by the emptiness around her. The eerie silence morphed into something more sinister, a muffled heartbeat throbbing in the walls of the mall. "Mom," it whispered from somewhere deep within those twisting aisles. In desperation, she sought out that unusual janitor, hovering near the food court shadows. "What do you know about these cursed rules?" she demanded, a fervor igniting within her. He spoke of vanished families and restless spirits, his eyes glistening with truths that twisted in the tension of the air. "They didn't follow the rules," he said. "They didn't heed the warnings. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With each unexplained disappearance in the community, Emily became engulfed in dread. And as the flickering lights dimmed, her grip tightened on Jason's baseball cap, an anchor to sanity and urgency. She could feel the weight of the mall pressing down, the foundation of once welcoming hallways now rife with malevolence. Just as she thought she pieced together the clues, the atmosphere shifted. A voice, familiar yet distorted, echoed from the depths of a darkened corridor. "Help me, Mom," it called, sending a jolt of terror racing through her system. In that moment, with realization crashing upon her, she understood the chilling truth. Not only was Jason in jeopardy, but her entire community was entwined within the sinister grip of the mall. The question loomed large. Could she uncover the dark reality before it consumed them both? Her heart raced, every beat thudding like a war drum in her ears. "Jason!" she cried out, her voice sounding small and fragile in the vast emptiness. The oppressive silence swallowed her words as she stepped into the shadowy corridor, anxiety wrapping around her throat like a noose. The darkness stretched ahead, twisting into shadows shaped by her dread. "Help me, Mom," the voice echoed again, a chilling whisper that felt like ice against her skin. It could be Jason, but it carried a weight of something darker. Was it really him, or a cruel trick played by the twisted spirits that haunted them all? She pressed deeper into the gloom, the air thickening with each cautious step. The once familiar layout of shops transformed into a disorienting maze, a kingdom of the lost. Mannequins stared at her, their painted eyes glistening under the dim light, watching, judging. Emily shook her head, a desperate attempt to fend off the rising terror. She couldn't be paralyzed by fear, not while Jason was out there. "I will find you," she yelled, hoping to pierce the veil of darkness. The echo of her voice died down, leaving an eerie stillness. Suddenly, a flicker of light caught her eye from further down the corridor. It was weak, pulsating like an anxious heartbeat. She stumbled toward it, a moth to a flame, her instincts to flee warring with her need to reach her son. As she neared, the glimmer grew stronger, pouring over a tangled heap of clothes that lay discarded on the ground. Emily squatted beside it, her eyes widening in horror. Among the tangled fabric, she recognized Jason's favorite shirt, its bright red practically screaming tragedy amidst the shadows. Panic gripped her, an iron fist squeezing until her breath shallowly escaped her lungs. "Jason!" she shouted, her voice cracking. The walls seemed to vibrate with the sound, the building itself shaking, as if responding to her call. Suddenly, she heard it, a soft giggle. Not an innocent child's laughter, but something sinister, echoing as if mocking her desperation. "Mommy," the voice sang, each syllable drenched in malice. It twisted her gut, a warning that something was very wrong. As she lifted her head, she caught sight of a figure at the end of the hall, a silhouette moving with an unnatural grace. "Come to me, Emily," it coaxed, the tone laced with an unearthly allure. Her instincts screamed to run, but still, Emily found herself rooted to the spot, captive in a gaze she could not break. The figure was both humanoid yet disturbingly off, with elongated limbs and a face hidden beneath shadows. "Jason!" she cried, forcing herself into action, sprinting toward the light source. The flickering light soon failed her again, plunging her into darkness. The ghostly figure dissipated into the gloom, its haunting laughter ringing out like bells of doom. As she maneuvered through the abyss, the heartbeat in the walls pulsed louder, thrumming with an ominous rhythm that threatened her sanity. What did it mean? And where had Jason gone? Flashes of moments shared with him leaped to her mind. Football practices, late-night movies, his smile so bright. But time was running out, and she could feel the cold creeping again, wrapping around her like a shroud. A promise echoed within her. She would not lose him. She entered an open atrium, bathed in the flickering glow of emergency lights. The vast space felt infinite, shadows infinitely deeper. Floating above her were remnants of a once vibrant wildlife display, plastic creatures now twisted and contorted, like nightmares hanging in a darkened sky. Then she saw it, a door slightly ajar at the far end, light seeping from the crack. "Jason!" Emily called again, her throat raw, fear and hope mingling in her chest. What waited behind that door? Was it Jason, or something else entirely, waiting to trap her in its web? In that moment of silence, a cold chill swept through the air, whispering promises of terrible revelations. And as she reached for the handle, she could feel the fear crash over her like a rogue wave. Could she confront the truths lurking behind that door? Or would she, too, join the spirits lost to the cursed rules of the Mall of America? Emily's hand trembled as she grasped the cold metal doorknob. Would it turn? Would it yield to her desperate need for answers? The flickering light from within called to her, a beacon amidst the thick cloak of darkness. Drawing a shaky breath, she twisted the knob. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room, shadows swirling like smoke. The air was thick, acrid with a scent she couldn't place. Decay, maybe? The light flickered erratically, revealing objects strewn about. A child's toy, a cracked picture frame, and what looked like a carnival mask grinning eerily at her. "Jason!" she shouted again, this time her voice a hoarse whisper, her heart slamming against her ribs. Nothing. The silence was suffocating, wrapping her tighter than the terror around her body. She stepped inside, the floor creaking beneath her weight. A sensation crawled up her spine, an unshakable feeling of being watched. The room, small and claustrophobic, had no windows, and only one weak bulb hung from the ceiling, blinking as if it were as frightened as she was. Her instinct screamed at her to leave, but the need to find Jason pushed her onwards. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she spotted movement. A figure slumped in the far corner, shrouded in shadow. Emily's breath quickened. Could it be him? She stepped closer, heart thundering in her ears like a war drum demanding attention. "Jason?" she called softly, hoping against hope. The figure shifted, and a wave of dread washed over her. It wasn't just any figure. It was another child. A boy with glossy eyes and pale skin, wearing tattered clothes, staring blankly at the wall. Fear twisted in her gut like a knife. "You're not my son," she breathed, a chill lacing her voice. The boy slowly turned towards her, and the light caught the smile on his lips. But there was something wrong about it, too wide, too jagged. The boy leaned forward, his voice a mewling whisper. "Help me. Help us." Suddenly, other shapes appeared, emerging from the shadows, their faces distorted, eyes wide with terror. The realization hit her like a brick wall. They were all children, all lost, all abandoned, trapped in a world that feasted on fear. What happened to you?" Emily stammered, backing away slowly, the taint of dread clawing at her heart. The boy's smile faded into a haunting frown. "They take us. They play." His voice cracked, revealing a tremor laced with a deeper horror. "You have to leave. It feeds on your fear." It? The entity lurking in the building? Panic surged within her, overwhelming her senses. Maybe the malicious creature had already clawed at Jason's spirit, twisting it into a lure, playing her like an unwitting pawn. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the hallway behind her, rattling the walls, and she spun around, terror electrifying her instincts. The remaining light flickered violently as steps echoed, heavy and deliberate. "Emily," hissed a voice that wormed its way into her mind. It didn't sound like Jason. "Come play." She felt it, the unmistakable malevolence washed over her, pulsing with the rhythm of the heartbeats in the walls. The children's faces, filled with sheer terror, mirrored her own, begging her to stay, to remain, to lose themselves like they had. "No!" she screamed, backing towards the door. "I won't let it take me!" With a desperate push, she slammed the door shut, the darkness roaring in protest. Heart pounding, she turned, knowing that whatever was out there was coming for her, ready to drag her into the abyss with them. Only the chill of dread and despair accompanied her as she raced from the room, fleeing the grip of the plaything created from fear. But the mall had other plans. Shadows surged and clung to her, blocking paths, twisting corridors into an ever-tightening noose. Just as she thought she found her way, footsteps echoed aggressively behind her, a dark promise of pursuit that filled her with dread. What kind of game was this? What had she awakened? For Jason, she had to keep running. But every step felt heavier, even as the specters of countless lost children watched, their hollow eyes filled with despair. In her frantic race, she overheard whispers that chilled her blood. "You can't escape. You can't." How long before the darkness consumed them all? Just as hope flickered out, she spied another light around a corner, bright and warm. But could it be a trap? Would risking herself again cost her everything? She paused, her breath clouding in the air, a single question simmering in her heart. Could this lead to Jason, or simply more terror? The mall's grip tightened, and with it the stakes grew higher. The light flickered again, but this time it burned with a persistent glow, pulling Emily closer. She hesitated, sweat prickling at her brow. What if it wasn't a beacon of hope? What if it was just another trap? The whispers behind her grew louder, a chorus of lament and rage. "Emily, come back to us!" Her heart raced. Turning away from the light felt like losing a crucial chance. But the shadows behind her were thickening, wrapping around her legs like icy vines. With a grim resolve, she pressed forward, inching toward the light, vowing to find out what awaited her. As she neared, the light revealed a small alcove, and there, on the floor, lay a toy, a scraggly teddy bear with one button eye. Its fur was matted, a lifeless remnant of joy. She knelt beside it, every instinct screaming at her to flee. Yet something in her thought she could hear Jason's laughter echoing in her mind, a distant memory she clung to. Then the whispering intensified. "Play with us, Emily." It was a cacophony that drew nearer, a swarm of voices gnashing and whining. The sounds rattled her, intertwined with the low growl of something lurking in the darkness. "Stay away!" she shouted, struggling to focus on the bear. She felt a pull, the cold terror weaving back into her thoughts, and the fabric of her sanity began to fray. "Jason, where are you?" In that moment, the bear moved, as if compelled by unseen hands. It rolled toward her, coming to a stop at her feet. Emily recoiled, heart hammering. The whispers subsided, then morphed into laughter, sharp and hollow. Show her what she needs to see." The whispered command sent her instincts into overdrive. Emily snatched the bear and threw it down the corridor, the laughter turning to shrieks of horror. Don't take it away!" But she hesitated just a second too long. The alcove around her dissipated. Walls melted into insubstantial shadows. A sudden thud landed behind her, and she spun around, the laughter morphing into something monstrous. It was all around her now, the dark, cackling, clawing at her mind. "Jason," she whimpered, desperation washing over her. And then she saw him. He was standing in the shadows, just within reach of the light, his face obscured, but the outline unmistakable. "Emily, help me." The words dripped with an urgent sorrow, as if they had been marinated in despair. "No, you're not real," she shouted, shaking her head. "You're trapped. I can't help you." "Please." The voice was so close, a tug at her heart. "They'll take you, too." Each second felt like an eternity as Emily felt the ground tremble beneath her. From the converging darkness, shapes began to form, dark, elongated figures swirling and twisting with menacing intent. They reached for her, their fingers elongated and ragged. "You belong with us," they shrieked in unison. The construct around Jason flickered and faded. "Emily, don't trust them," he cried breathlessly, as he seemed to fade into the shadows, leaving only the echo of her name. "Jason!" she yelled again, but the shadows enveloped her, gravity pulling her down into their depths. She clawed her way back, fighting against an onslaught of fear and darkness dragging her under. Glancing back at the corridor, she couldn't tell if the light was even still there. Panic surged. Was this how it ended? Was she destined to fall into this abyss, joining the chorus of lost souls? But right then, a glimmer of defiance ignited within her. She wouldn't give in to this nightmare. Gathering her strength, she screamed, "No, I will find him. You won't take me." With a burst of adrenaline, she lunged for the last flicker of light she could see, driven by a fierce hope that clung desperately to life. Would that light guide her to Jason, or was it merely a trick of the dark, waiting to ensnare her once more? As she leapt, shadows writhed around her like serpents, hungry and waiting. In the chaos, a chilling realization sank in. Every path she chose led deeper into an unending game. And as the light flickered once more, Emily felt a cold certainty. She wouldn't be the only one playing. What if Jason was just the start? What other secrets lay hidden in this cursed place? The moment Emily hit the ground, the light surged around her, enveloping her like a warm blanket. But it was deceiving, a false sense of security. She quickly surged to her feet, scanning the bizarre landscape of flickering forms and shifting shadows. "Jason!" The name echoed back to her, twisted and distorted, as if the very darkness was mocking her plea. A chill raced down her spine as she hesitated. The alcove she had just escaped melted into a swirling mist. Shadows hovered ominously at the edges, taunting her, inviting her to step back. She forced herself to remain still, not letting fear dictate her decisions for one more moment. She focused on the area surrounding her, striving to identify any semblance of structure. Before her loomed a vast expanse, a cavernous hall echoing with haunting whispers. The old walls, once draped with colorful murals, now bore the grotesque carvings of tormented faces. Their mouths were wide, frozen in screams that never escaped. Emily squinted through the gloom, desperate for Jason's silhouette amongst the chaos. "Come to me." A voice between a whisper and a wail beckoned from a shadowy corner, deepening her resolve to search for him. Was that Jason's call, or was it another cruel trick? She began to walk, each step echoing like a drumbeat in the vacuum of this place. The shadows flitted closer, brushing against her skin like icy fingers, each caressing moment leaving behind a cold, creeping dread that seemed intent on consuming her spirit. Ahead, a structure emerged, a child's play area, brightly colored but now covered in dust and decay. The familiar shapes of slides and swings now looked monstrous, their once joyful purpose twisted into something sinister. Empty seats swayed slightly, as if stirring with the ghostly remnants of giggles and laughter long lost. And there, in the center, lay another object, a small music box, intricate and beautiful. Driven by an unnatural compulsion, Emily approached it, the haunting melody beginning to play softly, drawing her closer. "Let it play," whispered the shadows that circled her, enticing her to listen. The tune was sweet, but turned sour as she grew more entranced. As she reached for the box, it abruptly clicked shut, silencing the haunting music. The shadows around her surged forward, tightening their grip. Panic clawed at her chest, and with renewed vigor she yanked her hand back. "No!" she shouted, her heart racing. "I won't lose myself here." Suddenly, a rush of wind, like a phantom breath, swept through, carrying her voice as a wailing lament. She fought against the current, adrenaline pumping through her veins, eyes darting to every corner for a glimpse of hope, of Jason. "Mommy!" A child's voice echoed, innocent yet filled with fear. It sliced through the air, sending a chill down Emily's spine. "No! Stay away!" she cried out instinctively, yet the shadows only tightened their hold, almost as if they relished her turmoil. "Help me, Emily." The voice bore a heartbreaking urgency, now unmistakably Jason's. "Jason!" she screamed, looking beyond the play area where she spotted a flicker of movement. Dark figures danced in the corners, their features obscured, but their intent was clear. They were drawn toward that sound, toward the cry of a child. With resolve pumping through her, she dashed toward it, determination igniting every fiber of her being. She wouldn't leave him behind. Not again. As she raced ahead, the darkness screeched in protest, a roar that echoed through the desolated play area. In that cacophony, her feet faltered, and the shadows loomed larger, coiling like serpents ready to strike. Just beyond the forth-telling shadows lay another entrance, glistening with dim lights, but pulsing with dread. Could it be freedom or another trap? With no time for doubt, she leapt, fighting against the wave of despair crashing around her. The last echoes of Jason's voice were swallowed by the shadows, leaving only a profound silence in its wake. What had she really stumbled into? A way out or the heart of something far worse? As she crossed the threshold, a chilling realization settled over her. The game had only just begun, and with her entry, the rules were about to change. The moment Emily landed on the other side, her breath hitched. The air was thick, heavy with an unbearable sense of foreboding. The dim lights flickered ominously above her, casting strange shadows on the warped walls that seemed to pulse and breathe, writhing like a thing alive. Where was she? The space around her shifted into something warm and crowded, yet disorienting. The walls blinked in and out of focus, and Emily found herself in what appeared to be an endless corridor, lined with doors, etched in patterns that mimicked human suffering. A deep-rooted instinct screamed at her to run, but her heart, filled with longing, directed her feet forward in search of Jason. "Emily." That damned voice drifted through the air again, lingering, testing the threads of her resolve. Each syllable sent icy tendrils creeping up her arms. She pressed on. "Jason!" she called, desperation and fear twisting her voice. The echo came back to her, sounding like an apology. The corridor brightened momentarily, revealing glimpses of life through the thin wooden doors. In one, she saw fleeting shadows of children at play. Through another, she caught the faintest sound of laughter, unlike the echo of despair that enveloped her now. For a moment, hope fluttered within her. Yet another door creaked open before her, beckoning. Dark fog swirled out, revealing a figure. A woman, her eyes wide with terror, clutching a small doll that looked eerily like Jason. "Don't open the door, please!" the woman screamed, her voice frantic, filled with desperation. It takes what you love most." The door closed abruptly, leaving Emily trembling. Every instinct told her to flee, yet her resolve hardened. What did they want? What was this place? Behind her, sinister sounds intensified. A rattling, skittering noise. She spun around. Shadows pulsed in the corners, writhing and blending into apparitions that seemed almost human, clawed fingers reaching for her. "No!" she gasped, scrambling forward. She spotted a door at the end of the corridor, shining with an inviting glimmer, like a lighthouse in a storm. She sprinted, the air thickening behind her with the weight of unseen eyes. Every step felt heavy, as if the ground itself were trying to pull her back. The rattling grew louder, morphing into sinister laughter, derisive, mocking her fear. "Come play with us, Amelie," the voices chanted, echoing off the walls, thick and Without looking back, she flung open the door and stumbled inside. The moment she crossed the threshold, the laughter was silenced, replaced by a haunting melody that seeped into her bones. She gasped. The room was gigantic, ceiling high and cavernous, yet every inch was caked in dust and despair. An enormous clock hung against the wall, its hands frozen in time. Around the room were toys lying abandoned, stuffed animals, building blocks chipped and cracked, ghostly remnants of happier days. "Jason?" she whispered, scanning the depths. Suddenly, the clock began to tick, its sound deep and ominous, resonating like a heartbeat. "Time is running out," the shadows rasped, coiling around her feet. "No, I won't let you take him," she screamed, her voice a defiant roar against the impending darkness, filling with an unyielding determination she didn't know she possessed. As the shadows thickened and the clock's pulse quickened, she felt herself being drawn into a terrible vortex, a cyclone of fear and desperation wrapped tightly around her. Something cold grasped her wrist. She turned quickly, her heart racing as she faced the translucent shape of a child, the pale figure of Jason, looking at her with wide, pleading eyes. "Mommy, help me," he rasps, stretching out a trembling hand towards her. But before she could reach him, the clock chimed, resonating with a bone-chilling resonance, shaking Emily to her core. The doors slammed shut, one by one with each chime, sealing her in this nightmare. "What are you?" she shouted, voice trembling. "Time here is a game, and the stakes are high," echoed the shadows, swirling in a frenzy as the clock struck again. The walls pressed in, suffocating her hope, and she understood. Freedom wasn't just about escaping hell. It meant playing their diabolical game. Would she fight against it, risking everything for her son? Or become another whisper in this nightmare? The clock ticked louder, its rhythm clawing at her sanity. The game had become all too real. The shadowy forms tightened around Emily, their presence both suffocating and electrifying, a weight pressing against her chest. The clock's relentless ticking raced in sync with her heartbeat, blurring the lines of time and reality as the pale figure of Jason lingered, calling out to her with a voice that clawed at her soul. "Mommy," he whispered, a wisp of breath born of uncertainty and fear. She could see the desperation in his round, glimmering eyes, but he was so far away, and the room around her seemed like a cage, twisting and warping with every breath she took. Suddenly, doors that lined the room began to jolt open and then close rapidly, as if something unseen was playing with the very fabric of time. Each creak of wood against wood echoed like thunder in her ears, and she felt the frantic energy whirl around her. What would happen if she opened one of those doors? "Jason!" she shouted, her voice thick with panic as she reached desperately towards him. But just as quickly he began to recede, fading into a phantom of mist, stretching away from her reach. "No, don't go!" The shadows roared with laughter that sliced through her like glass, vibrant with malice. "You can't save him unless you play," they sneered, their voices curling into sinister whispers, trying to worm into her mind. "Sacrifice awaits." With newfound determination boiling in her veins, Emily turned toward the clock, whose hands were now shrouded in darkness. Each tick felt like a countdown, like a warning that whatever lay ahead was tangled with her fate. To save Jason, she had to confront whatever horror this place held. "I'll do it, I'll play," she declared, her own voice unfurling the depths of dread with a flicker of defiance. The walls seemed to draw closer, the hum around her swelling as a door swung wide open, revealing a dark void within. A sense of dread washed over her, tangling her resolve. Inside that darkness could be her son, or a deeper abyss that would swallow her whole. Something stung at her ankles. The shadows were now coiling up around her legs, hissing in muted tones. "This game shows no mercy," they hissed. "To win, you must face your worst fear." "Let me face it," she yelled, shaking her head, her knuckles white as they clenched into fists. Whatever awaited her could not be worse than losing Jason, not after everything she had endured. With a sudden jolt, the clock struck loudly, each chime booming against her eardrums, and in that split second, the world blurred. Her surroundings shifted again, and the room transformed, disintegrating into a checkered floor stretching toward a great expanse. Light poured in. It was a surreal landscape, yet everything felt wrong. The vibrant colors faded as soon as they reached her, almost as if they were being pulled back into the void behind her. She stepped forward hesitantly, breath hitching, trying to keep her bearings. "Look closer," came the rasp, taunting her from the corners of her mind. As she peered around the surroundings, she noticed a series of symbols etched into the ground. They looked like a macabre game board, each square representing a part of her life. Shadows darting across each square, flickering with memories just out of reach. Images of Jason, their life together, down to the simplest moments of laughter and warmth. As she stepped on the first square, a deep rumble echoed beneath her feet, and a shadow split from the darkness, taking the form of a monstrous figure cloaked in despair and grief. "Choose wisely which part of your past you want to face," it growled, eyes gleaming like molten gold, hungry and expectant. Reality twisted as she realized the terrifying truth. This wasn't just a game of chance. It was a reflection of her deepest fears and regrets. She had to navigate through her own mind to find Jason. "But what if I lose?" "Then you'll have nothing left to keep," the figure snarled, shifting closer, its breath hot like the fires of hell. Heart racing, Emily steeled her resolve. She could reclaim her strength, her love. She had to be brave. "Let's play," she whispered, her voice trembling but fierce. In the echo of her declaration, the ground shook, dark stakes rising from the shadows, and all around her, the air thickened with the weight of her decision. As new images flashed before her, each one darker than the last, the game was far from over. Would she find the courage to face her fears, or would the darkness drag her deeper into despair? The clock chimed once more, a sinister herald announcing the start of her darkest hour. Emily's heart pounded, echoing like a war drum in the void. The shadows flickered, dancing in anticipation, their whispers curling around her mind like poisonous ivy. She stood on the edge of her own fears, every square of the game board vibrating with the weight of her memories. With a deep breath, she took another step, eyes locked on the monstrous figure before her. Its shape morphed and twisted, barely human, yet brimming with grief. "Tell me your fear, and I shall show you," it hissed, its voice like rusted chains scraping against stone. A cold sweat trickled down Emily's spine. What would she have to confront? The reality of Jason's cries? The day she thought he could never be lost? Unforgettable moments that made her heart flutter and then shatter in the same breath. "Your first choice, Emily," the shadow urged, inching closer. "What truth will you unravel here?" She forced herself to speak through chattering teeth. "The day I lost him, the moment I let him go." The ground trembled violently beneath her as golden light engulfed her vision. Memories crashed in like an avalanche, with Jason's bright laughter piercing through the darkness. She found herself once again kneeling beside his little bed, the soft glow of nightlights surrounding her. Only this time it felt heavier, like a grave burden dressed in cotton-sweet innocence. "I should have been there! I could have saved you!" she cried out, right hand trembling as it reached toward phantom Jason, whose innocent eyes looked back at her, full of trust. Each heartbeat echoed like a desperate plea. But the shadow loomed over her still, an inky smirk playing on its lips. "But you weren't, and you know the truth." With a sudden jolt, Emily was torn from the memory, faces morphing into distorted versions. A cackling laughter seeped from all sides. "It's not just fear, Emily, it's regret, and it will consume you." Gripping her temples, she fought against the tidal wave of emotions crashing into her. No, she refused to drown. Wiping tears, she shouted through the haze, "Show me what I need to do." The world shifted. Images flashed before her. Nicole, her best friend, rode the swings with Jason, laughter lifting into the summer air. The car accident that shattered her life. Jason's tiny shoes, left by the door. Each scene more painful than the last. A sharp pang marked her decision. If she stayed paralyzed by regrets, she would never save him. "Choose to move forward and embrace the weight," the shadow snarled, its breath stinking of ash and despair. "Move forward," Emily echoed, chest heaving, as clarity struck her. She wasn't just here for Jason. She was here to conquer the life that spiraled out of control. Each step forward was an act of bravery, the first crack in her shell of despair. Taking a step onto the next square, the entire space tremored beneath her feet. Lines of light from her memories intertwined, drawing her in deeper. She recoiled as the shadows circled closer, grotesque figures mocking her with distorted voices of loved ones. "You can't escape. You have to be the sacrifice." She grit her teeth, howling fiercely against their taunts. "I will not give in. Jason needs me." With that declaration, the air crackled, and the clouds of shadow began to swirl and churn, almost as though in anticipation of the next chapter in her dire challenge. The abyss opened wide, promising more than just anguish. Would it lead her to her son, or plunge her into madness? As the floor shifted again, a new symbol flared to life beneath her feet, a path shining among the darkness. The stakes were raised, and the game was no longer just about fear. It was about survival. The clock ticked louder, seconds slipping away. And then a distant echo sliced through the chaos, a familiar voice whispering through the darkness. "Mom?" Emily's heart leaped. Was it Jason, or a cruel trick designed to shatter her resolve? With adrenaline surging, she took a step toward the light, but the shadows howled, angry and urgent. They wouldn't let her go free so easily. What awaited her in the heart of that blinding brightness? Would the truth finally set her free, or would it snare her forever in the clutches of despair? What horrors lurked in the depths of her own choices? The air crackled around Emily, buzzing with static. She could almost feel the whisper of hope tugging at her senses, but the shadows clawed at her, urgent and relentless. "Mom?" The voice again. Was it really Jason? The image of his playful smile flashed in her mind, and she forced herself to step closer to the light. But the shadows rolled forward, thick as smoke, wrapping around her legs like chains. They pulled her back, a chorus of twisted faces morphing into grotesque masks of her own fears. "You think you can just escape," they screeched. "You must sacrifice." "Sacrifice?" she screamed, her voice cracking against the mockery surrounding her. "I won't be your pawn, not again." She strained against their grip, needing to reach that light, to find Jason. With a fierce roar, she twisted and spun, breaking free from their grasp, her heart racing as she shimmied towards the brightness. It felt like stepping into an embrace, a welcome warmth that banished the chill of despair. Suddenly, she was no longer on the grim, shadowy plain. She blinked and found herself in a tranquil park, the scent of blooming flowers enveloping her. The laughter of children echoed, carrying the familiar tinkle of joy she deeply missed. Before her stood a massive oak tree, and underneath it she caught sight of him, Jason, his little form perched on a swing, kicking his feet in rhythm to his laughter. "Mom!" he called again, his voice clear as crystal. "Look at me! Come play!" Emily's heart leapt. Was this real? Could it be? Chills wrapped around her spine, both wonderful and terrifying. But as she dashed toward him, the laughter turned sinister. Jason's face flickered and twisted in the sunlight. "Mom, come and play. It's okay." But behind him, shadows lurked, creeping around the tree like coiling snakes. Their hissing whispered doubts and fears into her ears. "Don't you see? You let him go. Do you even deserve this moment? No one can save what's already lost." "No!" she shouted, clutching her head, the assault of their taunts weighing heavily on her. She had faced their horrors, but this felt like a dagger dancing in the wound, the ultimate betrayal of her own memories. "Mom!" Jason pleaded again, but this time his voice crackled, distancing him from her grasp. "Don't leave me!" "Jason!" Emily screamed, panic engulfing her as shadows erupted from the ground, consuming the scene around her. The park disappeared in a whirl of darkness, while Jason's laughter warped into a shriek, dissolving into echoes that dug into her mind. Suddenly, she felt lightheaded. The world around her spun violently. Desperate, she closed her eyes and focused. She would not let the shadows take him from her. Not again. "Show me," she whispered into the dark. "I need to know what I must do. I will not leave him." An eerie silence enveloped her, and then she felt a presence, the air thickening. The shadows parted just enough, revealing an ancient tome, its cover like blackened skin, pulsing with a dark rhythm. It beckoned to her, the whispers now enticing, seductive. "Will you read the rules? The path to his freedom lies within." What truths resided in those pages? Would knowing them court more horrors, or finally guide her to Jason? As her trembling hand reached for the tome, the darkness surged around her, a cold rush that left her breathless. The shadows began to converge once more. Could she handle whatever knowledge would spill forth? With a deep breath, she summoned all her courage, and the pages began to turn, the words inscribed glowing ominously as they danced in the dark. What secrets would she uncover? What sacrifices awaited her? The conversion was just beginning. Light enveloped Emily as she peered into the ominous tome. Words unfurled before her, dark spirals of history that spun tales of terror. As she read, her heart raced. Each line pulled her deeper into the cursed world of the Mall of America. "The curse," she whispered, urgently reading the chilling instructions, "binds souls to the mall. Fear feeds it, and every choice must be played." Every beat of the clock echoed in her ears, reminding her of the urgency of the moment. She was teetering on the edge, a precipice where knowledge could grant her the power to save Jason, but could also lead her into a darker trap. Remember, Emily, every character has a role. Every sacrifice demands a price. A shadow ghosted through her mind, taunting her with voices of those lost. The warnings echoed louder now, filling the air with dread. "Jason!" she screamed mentally, willing to confront whatever monstrosity lay ahead. "I will find you!" The tome pulsed with energy, and the shadows around her writhed eagerly. The first choice was clear. She had to face her deepest fear, the loss of Jason. She would have to move beyond the past or risk becoming entangled in the malignant web woven by them all. With a determined breath, she stepped back into the fray of darkness that danced around her, the reality shifting into that ghastly checkered landscape once more. The monstrous figure awaited, its eyes gleaming like smoldering coals. "Speak, and I shall reveal your truth," it hissed, its voice dripping with sinister mirth. "I choose the moment I let him go," Emily declared, her resolve solid. The floor trembled beneath her feet, swirling shame and sorrow wrapping around her tightly. Lines of memories burst open unexpectedly, a vivid blend of laughter and silence. She was standing on a sunlit day, at the edge of a playground, Jason frolicking in the sun. Then the haunting shadow of the car accident loomed in blatant clarity, a jagged, harsher shift of fate that twisted everything in a heartbeat. "Mom!" The urgent call of her child echoed in the void, now more haunting as she felt the wretched pull of reality. "No!" she cried out as darkness swirled around her, silencing his voice. "I won't let you take him again." The pain lunged at her chest, and she fought against the weight of regret. "Face your fear or lose everything," the shadow snarled, advancing towards her, its form drawn and monstrous. "I will face it," Emily cried back, her voice rising against the chaos around her. "I was afraid, but I am not afraid anymore." With each word, she stepped forward, stepping onto the square that pulsed beneath her. The world around her shook, spinning wildly, swirling branches of memories cascading into one another. The playground brightened before her, vibrant and alive, but behind it loomed a darker presence. The shadows of grief and loss hung heavy in the air. "Mommy, where are you?" The voice chilled her blood and made her heart race in manic desperation. In that moment, clarity pierced through the tumultuous swirl, a flicker of Jason's smile in a memory washed with love. "Mom, help me!" "I'm coming," she screamed. Determination roaring in her heart. The shadows whispered and chanted, but she banished their noise with the fierce cry of a mother's love. Suddenly, she was drawn back into the swirling expanse, the very fabric of her decisions challenging her. "What must I do?" she cried, echoing her love against the darkness. "Tell me, I refuse to abandon him." From that light, the giant clock chimed yet again, the shadows recoiling as if in fear. A path illuminated, and out of the swirling mist she spotted Jason, trapped inside the grasp of the shadows, stretching out his arms toward her. "Mommy!" he cried, his little face contorted with worry, creating a rift in her heart that ached with longing. "Hold on, sweetie," she shouted, racing toward him, though the shadows swarmed in, whispering tools of hope now twisted into snares against her will. "You have to trust me." "Leave him!" the shadowy figure roared, swatting at her with ethereal fingers. But she barreled onward, heart pounding with every ounce of love she possessed. The weight of the darkness pushed against her frame, but it could not extinguish her will. She reached for him, fingertips brushing against his soft hands, enveloping him in her embrace. "I won't let you go! I am here!" Emily shouted out through the night of despair, pulling him back toward the light that flickered increasingly brighter around them. With the last remnants of her strength, she pushed back against the shadows, screaming into the tide. "Not today! Not ever!" The shadows screamed in fury, their forms twisting as the light expanded around them. The dark whispers transformed into a deafening cacophony, the shadows quaking against the bright illumination that heaved upward like a wave. Slowly, she pulled Jason out, wrapping him securely in her arms. "Emily!" the shadows hissed, shrinking further back, their forms unwilling to confront the fierce glow rising in the air. Emily held Jason tighter, feeling his warmth against her chest, grounding her against the terror of the abyss. "Together we can escape!" With one final act of defiance, she surged forward, holding tight to her son. The light erupted, washing away the suffocating darkness that clawed at their legs. The clock struck a final chord, the shadows evaporating as they were engulfed by the radiance of love and courage, marching through the opening brightening ahead. Then, with one triumphant final surge, they broke free, tumbling out into the warm glow of the outside world. Breathless and weak, Emily collapsed onto familiar ground, Jason's arms clutched tightly around her neck. The darkness fled behind them, fading into a memory riddled with echoes of pain, but now diluted by their victorious reunion. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she kissed Jason's forehead, an unwavering sense of gratitude filling her heart. "You're safe now," she whispered, sobbing quietly. As they rose together, Emily looked back at the mall, now just a facade of shadowy steel, dim lights flickering, then dimming entirely. The myriad of horrors concealed within faded, but their memories would forever become imprinted, lessons learned amidst the chaos. "Mom," Jason's soft voice broke through, his tiny fingers clasping hers tightly. "Home." Emily breathed with a smile through her tears, heart finally at ease. "Yes, let's go home." Hand in hand, they walked forward into the light of another day, the shadows of the past fading behind them, leaving room for a future radiant with love. And so, as the first light kissed the horizon, they left the cursed rules behind, a testament to the power of hope, love, and the unbreakable bond of a mother and son. Their story would ripple through many, a silent proclamation ringing through those who dared tread into darkness. No matter how deep the shadows may dwell, love glows eternally bright. You need to subscribe now for more exclusive stories like this one. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything to us. Show it.